Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Star Wars: Planet of Twilight by Barbara Hambly. This is the third book in the Callista Trilogy. It's not officially a trilogy, but like when you go to Goodreads and you look up and people talk about it as the Callista Trilogy. The first book was written by Barbara Hambly, that's Children of the Jedi, I reviewed that on the channel. And then the second book is Darksaber by Kevin J. Anderson. And so I'd read the first two books. I'd actually read Darksaber out of order years ago, like 6 years ago, and I thought it was a fine book. It wasn't a favorite or anything, but it was a fine book. And I read Children of the Jedi a few months ago, and it's a weird book. Let me tell you, it's a weird book. So I was kind of reticent to read Planet of Twilight, but I made the goal of finishing the EU this year, so I had to get to it at some point. So I sat down and read Planet of Twilight. And I'll say it's less weird than Children of the Jedi. That's about all I could say about the book, positively. This book does not feel as big or as epic as it should have been. It did not tie up the plot threads as satisfyingly as it should have. And what it does do that's interesting, I don't think that the payoff is quite there. So, talking about the different plot lines, you have first, Leia is dealing with this political crisis having to do with Nam Chorios. There's the old guard who don't want to bring in new people. There's the new people who are coming in. And then there's this guy, Ashgad, and his crew that are basically trying to broker deals, and they end up kidnapping Leia at the beginning of the book. And so Leia spends a lot of the book kidnapped. Then you have Luke, who actually ends up going to the planet of Nam Charios, trying to find Callista, who he believes is on the planet. And so the whole book is Luke's look for Callista, Luke's look. And then you have Han's story, where Han is very much like the third wheel story, the least important story, where he kind of gets wind that something's wrong, that Leia's disappeared, and he ends up kind of going both to look for Leia and also to work with some Imperial characters, we'll say, to try to stop the forces at Nam Charios. Han really represents kind of the Ariel storyline. And then, of course, you have C-3PO and R2-D2, who are just trying to find someone to tell them that Princess Leia has been, or Chief of State Leia, I should say, has been kidnapped. And I'll start with the Luke storyline. I wanted to enjoy the Luke storyline. I've enjoyed Star Wars books and movies that have a searching for someone type story. Like I really enjoyed Force Awakens, which is all about Rey trying to find, and others trying to find Luke Skywalker. But in this book, the search itself isn't that exciting, and then the payoff for it is just, I think, not worth it. I understand what Hambly and everyone was kind of hamstrung with because of what was going on with Mara Jade and what they were and weren't allowed to do with characters, but I feel like it was the story was very unsatisfying. Like you can tell a tragic story and still be satisfying. This just was not that, and I felt like I wasted a lot of reading time in the book. Then you have the Leia storyline, which was, of all the storylines, to me, the most engaging storyline. This is where she's kidnapped. There's someone that's kind of helping her out a little, that empathizes with her. She's trying to escape. I've read other books where Leia is trying to escape, and it works much better. For instance, when Leia is essentially captured by Zizor in Shadows of the Empire, much better story. That's not even a great story, but it's a much better Leia story. When this book works best is when Leia is flirting with the dark side, when she is having these visions of her doing awful things, and when she is contemplating joining the dark side and having to fight against that urge. That's when the book works at its best. And sadly, that wasn't that much of the book. Now, Han's storyline just really felt throwaway. Really was like, we need to give Han something to do. We'll put him in contact with the Imperials and stuff. And I was just like, that story wasn't great. The best the Han story got was when it kind of intersected with C-3PO and R2-D2, where C-3PO and R2-D2 are trying to reach Han, and they miss Han, and like by just a little bit. Like that was when Han's story was the most interesting, and it was really more about C-3PO and R2. And C-3PO and R2 do work really well here, but I think it's a little bit too much. Sometimes when you have a side character like that, if you make that side character too much of a main character, it kind of detracts from its diminishing returns a bit, and that's what happened with C-3PO and R2-D2. They had some really cool lines, some really cool scenes where they're trying to fight back against the people who've captured them or enslaved them or trying to stop them and things like that. But eventually got to the point where, all right, the jokes run out. It's not funny. It's not interesting anymore. So, just very little of the book really works. And then the whole Callista stuff, she's, the whole book's trying to find Callista, and she doesn't really show up till the last quarter of the book. And even then, she's not even that much of it. And, for being the Callista Trilogy, I thought she'd be in a little bit more of it. So it was really disappointing. And I just leave this whole trilogy, feeling disappointed. I thought Darksaber was okay as its own book by Kevin. I think Kevin, gets Star Wars just a lot better than Barbara Hambly does, which is no knock against Hambly. She gets Star Trek because I read her book Ishmael, which was great. And Barbara Hambly also wrote Dragon's Bane, a fantasy novel that was great. So Barbara Hambly can write some good stuff. It's just that not for Star Wars, it looks like. And it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm really disappointed that I didn't enjoy it more because I really wanted to. Because I was willing to give this a shot. One of my friends online, Dan CW or SW Centralized, he also has a YouTube channel. He loves the Callista books. In fact, Barbara Hambly, I think, is either his favorite Star Wars writer or one of his favorite Star Wars writers. So he loved this series. So I was like, maybe I'll see what he loves about it. But most of my friends were like, Callista Trilogy's not great. Darksaber's the only good part of it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. This book is less weird than Children of the Jedi. Children of the Jedi was exploring, with the Eye of Palpatine stuff, some really weird stuff. And some of it was even hard to follow, and it was like, boy, this doesn't feel like Star Wars. At least Planet of Twilight, more of it feels like Star Wars. It just feels like Star Wars that didn't work that well. I will also throw in that there is a start of a scene that feels just like Andor, and that has to do with Nam Chorios, people deciding to basically kill the people on the planet so that they can be able to mine it and get its resources. Very similar to the concept of Gorman and Andor. And that concept could work, but the execution, it was too fast, and it just wasn't. Just the way the writing flowed, the dialogue, the way the scenes unfolded, just the writing style itself just did not grab me, and that's really disappointing. Because again, a lot of these concepts, looking for someone that's missing, works really well in The Force Awakens. Leia trying to escape a kidnapper works really well in Return of the Jedi, and works really well in Shadows of the Empire. And then you have you have this Andor type thing. These can work. They just don't work when the execution's not there, and that's my problem. So I'm going to give the book a 4.5 out of 10. It had some good elements. In it, but when you look at the sum of its parts, it's just not a great book. So that's why I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. So if you've read Planet of Twilight, let me know what you thought of it in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.